Okay, this is a story of nonstop harassment by Yehuda Ferris, also known as Rabbi Yehuda Ferris. He's been in Berkeley 45 years. He's got this thing called Chabad of the East Bay, but nobody attends his services in 45 years. Now, he has been harassing this elderly Jewish man named Naftali Abalafia for 5.5 years straight, ever since the day Naftali Abalafia's brother died of cancer in January of 2020. Yehuda Ferris and his attorney, William John Rogers, out of Petaluma, license number 154219, they have been harassing this man to no end. They will never be satisfied until they kill him, because I think that's their intention. And you be the judge. Listen to this 5 years of harassment, and in another video we will break it down with the documentation and the legal evidence filed in court, case number RP 221-20163 in Alameda County. This is just an introduction. So the story goes that the man that they've been harassing for 5 years, because Yehuda Ferris has hated this man for like 35 years, right? He hated him because his daughters used to flirt with him when the daughters were younger and the man was younger. I don't know why he hates him. I'm not a psychiatrist. But what I'm telling you is he hates him, and this is a proof positive. So the man who Yehuda Ferris hates, Naftali Abalafia, his brother worked for Yehuda Ferris for 20 years, Levi Abalafia, and he worked for Yehuda Ferris for many long years, his brother, and worked for his wife. Yehuda Ferris and his wife inherited a gigantic real estate empire. They owned tons and tons of property. And so the man who they hate, his brother, who worked for them for 30 years, he fixed up houses. So it was a match, right? They had lots of property. He knew how to fix up houses. They employed him. So then the man suddenly gets 6 months to live in 2014 from liver cancer, and then he lived 6 years, and then he left a trust, and he owned this house, 1810 Grand Street, Berkeley, California, 94703, which now happens to be 2 blocks from this latest synagogue property that they bought, that Yehuda Ferris bought for $2 million at 1710 Grand Street. So they want to acquire the property of the man's brother because it's 2 blocks from their house. How convenient, from their empty synagogue that nobody attends in 45 years. They can't get a minyan in 45 years at any of their pop-up synagogues, including the latest one, which is 2 blocks from the man's property. So before the man died, he left a trust, and he said, I own half this house, and I'm putting my half of the trust in, and I'm giving my sisters and my brother 25% of my half of a $2 million house. That's $250,000 in real estate. Now, 3 elderly Jewish people who are in their 60s and no retirement money, no property, no businesses, no marketable skills, no college education, no nothing. They are starving. They are poor. They're living in the street practically. And then they lost their brother after 6 difficult years of anticipatory grief. And what better would it be that the brother said, I'm leaving something for my brother and sisters? Well, Yehuda snatched it all up and didn't give him anything, and that's the truth. Now, the man had 2 Filipino daughters, never converted. Their mother wasn't Jewish, so they were not Jewish because they refused to convert. They never spoke to their father in 6 whole years of cancer, and they confessed to it in court on August 19th. I'll show you the transcript in another video. But we know they never saw him because we were the witnesses, okay? So that killed them. They basically killed their father with isolation. That's what you do. If somebody dying of cancer for 6 years and your own daughters don't have the common decency to call you up and say, hi, father, how are you? That'll kill anybody, okay? And that's what happened to him. And they finally confessed in court. So he wrote into his trust that they could only get 25% of his half of the house under any circumstances. He owns 100% of half the house. They can only get 25%. End of story. So Yehuda Ferris sold the 2 daughters the whole house, the whole half of the house, in violation of the man's trust. And also he sold it to them for $80,000. So now the 3 poor siblings can't get any money because the property in the trust is gone. So how are they ever going to get their inheritance. They're not, unless they can sue Yehuda Ferris and get the court to get them to pay it back. But you can't get an attorney to fight, because no probate attorney will fight for such a small case. They go for $5 million cases, $10 million cases, $20 million cases. They don't go for no $1 million in real estate. I know. I've been calling them for 5 years, and they refuse. And regular attorneys don't know how to fight those cases. So let me get back to the story immediately, okay? 5 years of harassment. First, the guy dies. He slips him the wrong trust. He doesn't even tell him that it's an amended trust. They give him instead of giving him the trust that says you get 25% of half the house, then they updated it. He changed it 3 months before he died and said, well, I'm not giving you the house, but I'll give you $30,000 each, and it'll be a lien on the property with interest until you get paid in full. They gave him that trust, but the law says you're supposed to give them the first trust as well as the second trust, because the law says you only got 4 months to decide if you're going to contest the trust or not. So they didn't give him the second trust. So that was the first form of harassment. The guy was living with his brother for a year because the court kicked his girlfriend out. She didn't want to share, so the judge said, look, you get out, he can get in, he owns half, he has a right to die in his own house. So wherever he went, his brother went, because his brother was taking the vitals, giving the medicine, driving, cooking, cleaning, emotional support, everything, just being a normal brother in the face of death, okay? So he's living with them for that last year. Then the man passes away in ICU. They tried to put him in a nursing home 6 times, but the brother was there to block it. Not the daughters. They're too busy making $100,000 a year massaging somebody's leg as occupational therapists. They didn't have time to call up their father and say hello, cook him a meal, tell him that they love him. No, they wouldn't want to. They didn't save his life. He'd be alive today if they had volunteered to give a piece of their liver or looked for a liver donor. He was on the liver transplant list for a year and a half. His brother tried to give it to him, but the doctors turned it down. But the daughters would have been a better match. Did they try? No. That's why he's dead. Okay? So the nonstop 5 years of harassment began with slipping the man the wrong trust, tricking him so he wouldn't file any opposition. Then the second one was selling the property to the daughters for $80,000. But bear with me. The brother was living with his brother who was dying of cancer. He dies in January of 2020. COVID shuts down the world, so everything's frozen. Rabbi Yehuda Ferris' lawyer says, stick around, we want you in the house so we can get a negotiation, a settlement, and get you and your sisters your $90,000 plus 10% interest a year. But don't tell anybody that we want you there, and if you do, I'm going to burn you. That's what his lawyer said. He said, I will burn you. And that was around the time when ISIS was burning people on video, okay? So he says that if you ever William Jhon Rogers says, if you ever tell anybody that we want you in the house, then I'll burn you, okay? So then, fast forward, William Jhon Rogers goes to court to get some more money out of the trust and says, well, Judge, we don't know what to do. This brother was such a great brother, we don't want to kick him out. The girlfriend and the daughters want to kick him out, but we don't want to kick him out. So is it legal for him to be evicted in the middle of COVID? You decide, because we'll never do anything without this honorable court's permission. That's what they said in January of 2022 to the judge. And then 3 months later, in May, they get a schizophrenic attack and start further harassment of the guy by sending him a letter. Now, you know what the letter says? 3 months later? Oh, yeah, the hearing is in November. They open the case in January. In January, they say, well, Judge, we don't know what to do. He's a nice guy. We don't want to kick him out, but the girlfriend and the daughters do. So what do? You got to decide for us. That was January of 2022. Well, all of a sudden, 3 months later, in May of 2022, and the hearing's in November, a few months later, which is still 6 months before the hearing, they say, send him a letter saying, get out in 2 months or you and your sister will never get a dime. And go out and die of COVID in the street. We don't care. You better get out and accept this settlement. And he said, what settlement are you talking about? And they didn't answer. They didn't answer the phone. He called them 100 times. They wouldn't discuss the matter. They just said, you better get out in 2 months or else you will get nothing. And neither will your sisters. So he's like, I'm going to go out and live in the street. I took care of my brother for 6 years of cancer. They gave him 6 months to live every 6 months for 6 years, and I'm supposed to go live out in the street, and you're not even offering me a dime? I don't think so. So he didn't leave. Now they turned around and violated the trust by selling the property to the daughters who never saw their father in 8 years, and they recently confessed under oath. but we already knew it. We don't need their confession, right? They sold it to him for $80,000, but the trust says you can't sell it to him because they can't, even if they paid $5 million, they're not allowed to get more than 25% each because they never called me in 8 years before I died of cancer. They killed me. That's what he said, and he's right. So they sell it to him anyway. Then that was still in the middle of the pandemic, and then they think they start eviction action against the brother. But the brother found this great attorney who's a substitute judge who knew every trick in the book and stalled the trial for an entire year. But then the man still had to leave. So now he's got a 7-year eviction on his record. He can't even rent an apartment. He can't get a job. He can't buy a house because he's got an eviction on his record for 7 years. That's the 5 years of nonstop harassment. But let me get to the rest of it. That's just the beginning. They slipped him the wrong trust. They threatened him with die of COVID or get you and your sisters get disinherited. Then they sell the property to his brother's killers, the daughters that didn't see him for 8 years. That'll kill anybody with cancer. Ask any doctor. So then he doesn't leave because they're not offering him a penny. Was he going to go live in the street in the middle of COVID? That was illegal because the eviction moratorium said you can't leave your house, and common sense says you can't leave your house. So then they tag him with an eviction case. Now he's got a eviction on his record. Then during that time, he goes to court and files his own lawsuits because the probate attorneys won't take a case less than $1 million. He called like 80,000 of them, and as a rule, they don't take cases that small. It's true. Try it. Call them up and ask them. Trust litigation attorneys say, "Oh well, my relative died and they left $1 million in real estate and 50,000. Will you take the case?" "No, sorry, we don't take cases like that. It's too small. Sorry, too bad. Goodbye." And the Bar Association and the Legal Aid Society and the pro bono guys, call them too. They don't have any trust litigation attorneys. It's out of their wheelhouse by 1 billion miles. So now he's got the eviction on his record. He files his own lawsuits in the probate court, hoping to get a lawyer later to protect the statute of limitations. Well, the judge turns around and says, "We're going to trial, mister, on August 19th, 2024. We're going to trial. We're going to trial. We're going to trial." He says, "No, no, no, I don't have a lawyer." She says, "Yes, yes, yes." So he dismisses his own cases without prejudice 3 days before trial so he can live to fight another day because he's got a year to refile, but not before he got all the financial papers from the other side. They had to turn him over through discovery, and they thought, well, we'll give him all our guilty evidence, but he'll get his case dismissed, so it's not going to matter. Well, the guy got the documents from the other side and then dismissed the case. So now he's got the evidence against him, and he can bring back the case within a year. So they freaked out, and guess what they did? They convinced the elderly probate judge to condemn him as a vexatious litigant. So now he can't even go. And they lied and said he filed 30 lawsuits in the last 5 years. He objected, said it's not 30, it's only 5. Look at the fine print. They took 5 lawsuits and printed them 30 times and said he filed 30 lawsuits. The judge didn't care to look, and she said, "Okay, you're listed now as a lifetime sentence of a vexatious litigant," meaning you're not allowed to file any lawsuits in any court in the whole state of California. You're blacklisted unless you get a lawyer to help you. But no lawyer is going to help you because the lawyer will look bad if they represent people like you. So and the only other way you could file is if a judge in the county, the presiding judge, will give you permission to file, but they're under no obligation. So now the man can't even fight because first he didn't have enough money. It wasn't worth it for the probate judges. Even if he won the lottery and could pay the lawyers a ton of money to fight a case, they wouldn't take the case because it makes them look bad to the court if they're representing the guy as a vexatious litigant. So now he is appealing that, but only 15% of appeals are successful. So you think that would be enough, right? It's not. Then February 2025, they file a lawsuit. They file a restraining order against him saying to the judge, we want a gag order on his mouth, that he shouldn't be allowed to talk about the situation to newspapers or media or to any clergy, any rabbi in our denomination nationwide. And then the judge said, okay, serve him. and then they couldn't serve him because he wasn't around, because he didn't have nowhere to live because of them, so they couldn't find him. They sent a 6 foot, 200 pound bouncer to the man's relatives and said, "I'll give you $200 if you tell me where he's at," and almost got into a fist fight with some of the people living in the building. And then the judge said, "If you can't find him, I'm dismissing the case. You're welcome to refile." And then 2 days ago, now the guy gets another email threatening letter saying, "If you don't take down your social media posts in 10 days, then we're going to file a restraining order on you. And if you violate it, you could go to jail. And then we're going to file a defamation case on you." So, ladies and gentlemen, this is 5 years of nonstop harassment against a man whose brother died of cancer. And this is a pathological, sadistic, evil campaign, and they will not be satisfied until they kill the man. And the man got a death threat of about a month ago. He got a tarot card in the back of his car called the Ten of Swords, and that is a death threat. And that probably was from them as well. So be advised, attention law enforcement, if anything happens to the person making this video, who are the prime suspects? Yehuda Ferris of Chabad of the East Bay and William John Rogers of Petaluma. Attorney claimed to be attorney, license number 154219, 117 White Circle, White Oak Circle in Petaluma. And then there's Briar Horn, who's a young attorney, license number 330219. Then there's Nancy Salgado, Flora and Maxine Ziprin. They're all out to get this guy because he's exposing their crimes, and he's fighting for justice, and they have nothing better to do but perpetrate a 5.5-year harassment campaign against a Jewish senior citizen who's trying to fight for justice for his sisters and to honor the wishes of his late brother. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it first here. Please circulate this video. Thank you.